welcome to the second episode of The Ultimate Show. Now, this episode is the review of week one, and with me we have James and Andrew. So now, first we're going to preview the ESPN 3 game of the week, and I really thought that Charlotte did a very good job. Raleigh almost gave it away. So James, tell us what you think about that.
Well, honestly, nothing happened short of what I said in the preview. I said that if Charlotte was able to break through Raleigh's very inconsistent defense, they would have a chance to pull it out, and they almost did. I think Raleigh was doing everything they can to just try to make themselves look bad in this ESPN 3 game of the week. But honestly, it's nothing expected. Like I said, number one offense in the South last year, and I don't know if that can be said for this year for them. But definitely not the number one defense. If they want to get through this year, they have to definitely work out some kind of defensive scheme because it's not working. The fact, and no offense to Charlotte, but a game that you are like basically everyone expects you to win, and you show up like that, and you don't really come to life until the fourth quarter. It doesn't help you look good for like the Ulti-World analysts and us and Evan Lepler and everyone who's analyzing these games. So that's what I have to say about Raleigh. Honestly, it was a good game, a lot better than a lot of people anticipated, but Raleigh should have honestly done better.
And Andrew, what did you think about that?
Yeah, it was a really tough game. I watched it kind of from a distance, but I didn't really take a whole lot of notes, but I know Raleigh really had a tough game against him, so hopefully they put together a better game next week.
Yes, I can tell you that Raleigh didn't do themselves any favors in this game. I think Charlotte was actually winning by 1 point in the fourth quarter. So now that we have that done, let's go to that shell-shocking game in which Detroit got its first victory. So, Andrew, tell us about the
I was kind of still getting over the Detroit Cincinnati game, so I think everybody was kind of stunned at that game, but
I called
I'll get into that a little bit later. James is the only guy. He was the only guy who got the pick right. Hail to James, because that was something else. I know it was a low-scoring game compared to other games that went on during this week. Atlanta and Nashville was 26-16. Dallas was 30-18. Raleigh scored 23 points. It was a really low-scoring game. So I think that's a telltale of the Midwest having a better defensive game. In the future, I would like to see more offensive points, more fun. But I think the Midwest will have a better defensive game throughout the season this year.
And I believe it was either two Detroit players or one Cincinnati player and one Detroit player that actually set the record, and both players got 8 blocks in a single game.
Yeah. They're both Detroit players.
Okay, yeah.
They're both Detroit players.
Makes sense.
Yeah.
Yeah, and what a low-scoring game. 15-12.
Yeah, 15-12.
So enough of the Midwest division. Let's get James on the line.
Okay. Well, as you guys recall, I picked Atlanta to win over Nashville. Unfortunately, it's what my heart wanted. It was what my brain said needed to be said. And Atlanta really took it to Nashville in their home field. 26-16, a 10-point win. Nashville actually had Atlanta on their heels for honestly most of the first half, I should say. In the second half, Atlanta came to life. Continuous breaks. Nashville couldn't capitalize. They honestly let this game go. If they just been as competitive they've been in the first half, they probably could have won. But Atlanta is, like I said, last year, number one defense in the South. And, obviously a lot of defensive schemes are going to come back into play this year for a lot of teams. And Atlanta is one of them. Nashville really needs to focus on closing out games. It's, they did the exact opposite of Raleigh. They had them on their heels, and then they dropped it. So, honestly, that's my look at Nashville versus Atlanta. going into weeks further, Nashville has to figure out what they need to do to close out games, whether it be, sit some people on the bench and bring them in for the second half, or just, do some major conditioning during practice, or whatever is really causing these inconsistencies in the second half. But Atlanta really pulled it out, showed why they're a playoff favorite this year. And so the next game, Dallas Roughnecks versus the Austin Soul, the team everyone wanted to see. They had over 400 people in attendance that game. And Austin Soul lost 18-30 to Dallas. Dallas beat them by 12. Honestly, some people were picking a 20-point deficit. I was like, come on, guys. No. But it was weird. That game, it took 4 minutes for the first score to happen. I don't know whether it was just like nervousness or just because it wasn't good defense. No offense to either one of those teams, but it wasn't good defense. There was just a lot of unfortunate drops, some hucks towards the end zone that didn't get connected. So I can't put it on good defense. I say Dallas probably did have good defense as the game went on, but it wasn't in the first quarter. It was just a lot of, I don't know whether it was nerves or just, I don't know what it was, but definitely I'd say both of these teams need to get their groove going. I would have expected Dallas to score faster than that, but it was weird. After that first score, like things just moved like clockwork. Austin definitely needs to, and Dallas needs to fine tune a couple of things. But when you win 30-18, you don't listen to someone who says you need to fine tune a couple of things. But that's just what I'm saying. Dallas is still in the Southern Division. I mean, you're about to go into playing experienced teams, not next week, but in weeks further, they're going to start playing. Okay, experienced, with like 1 year of experience, but still, I mean, you still have Atlanta, you have the Jacksonville juggernaut, and I like guys like Bo Kittredge. What are you talking about? It's like, I mean, I'm analyzing the South for a reason. So that's just my view on Dallas. Don't get too comfortable, but keep your game plan because obviously it worked. So good work for Atlanta, Dallas, and Raleigh picking up their first few wins. Honestly, they were the teams everyone expected to win, but Charlotte really showed themselves. Like I said, like this was a chance for like these teams to prove themselves, and I think at least Charlotte proved themselves. Nashville proved they can be a force, but they have to come out better in the second half. And Austin, I can't say much for Austin because I really didn't know what they were trying to go for in that game.
All right, James. So thank you for that on the South Division. So now we'll get to my West Division.
Yeah.
And we had 3 games this weekend that were all very close. I think that I had the best weekend personally as far as the games that I had. In the West Division this week, we had San Francisco 25, San Diego 23, and that was in overtime. That game, San Francisco had 2 game-tying hucks, like buzzer-beating hucks, one right before halftime and one right before the final whistle. So San Francisco 1-0 after their first game. And then Seattle and Vancouver, I noticed that this game was tied pretty much the entire game up until like the last 2 minutes. I noticed that Darren Wu for Vancouver had a bunch of goals. So now that brings me to the games that happened on Sunday. Well, the one game in the entire league. And that was San Francisco 19 and Los Angeles Aviators 16. And that was another overtime game. I'm not sure if it was just that San Francisco had played a game the day before, but that's just insane. 2 overtime games in a row. And one more thing that I can say about the consistency in this league and the great games that we had, San Francisco was ranked number 2 in the AUDL standings before the season started, and San Diego was number 22. So if that says anything about how fast things can change, I don't know what else it does. So San Francisco 2-0 after the opening weekend. So now in our contest we had on the page this week for who could pick the most amount of games on the AUDL Pick'em right, we all got one wrong, so nobody has to wear the sign. Now, James went 3 for 3 on his picks. I went 3 for 3 on my picks, and unfortunately, Andrew went 0 for 1 on his picks.
0 for 1. Yeah, it's a tough slate, but you know,
listen to me. Listen to me.
Yeah, but next week, looking into the future, Detroit plays Pittsburgh. So I'm gonna put that one on the calendar as a game to watch because it's like the AUDL Mega Scrimmage rematch. So I think that'll be a good game to watch. But other than that, Radicals host Minneapolis next weekend. I'll be at that game. Cincinnati opens up next weekend at Indianapolis, Indianapolis against the Alley Cats. That'll be a good game to watch. But yeah, going back to this weekend, I was really surprised at how well Detroit played. Mind you, they had 8 blocks from 2 defensive players. Like, that's just
tied an ADL record.
That's got to be something out of the ordinary for them. So I'm really happy for the Detroit Mechanics. I'm glad that they got a win. They're in first place. Like, who would have ever thought Detroit Mechanics would be in first place? So you just can't predict this league. You can't take any game lightly. You can't let the past bother you. You got to pick up your games and keep playing. So no matter what the score is, you just go with it.
So yes, Andrew, that Detroit Mechanics game was incredible. So like you said, they're in first place in the Midwest Division. Now, your Madison Radicals take on the Wind Chill next week.
So thankful for that one.
And now that you say that, do you think that the Detroit Mechanics, the first place team right now, has a chance to make the AUDL playoffs?
Oh man, that's tough. It's week 2, so I wouldn't put it past them to be like a 500 team at that point. But if you're gonna label them a playoff contender, I'd be really hesitant to do that. Madison's been a playoff contender since day one. Pittsburgh just came into the league last year, but they're still a pretty good team. Maybe it was just a fluke, a couple plays that Detroit got lucky on. But Pittsburgh doesn't have a game under their belt, so look for that to be a big issue for the Thunderbirds. I don't know what I'm not from Pittsburgh. I don't know how their practices are going, but I think Pittsburgh definitely needs to relook at this matchup and make sure that all the X's and O's are checking out and making sure that they're making their catches when they need to. Just basic fundamentals, catching the disc, moving it around, scoring when you have to, and scoring efficiently. You can't spend too much time playing defense. You're just going to wear yourselves out. So I think that's probably what had to do with the Cincinnati-Detroit game. A low-scoring game like that means the defense is on the field a long time. That could play into Detroit's hand. They might have a better defense than last year. They definitely proved it, only allowing Cincinnati to score 12 times. But in the past, Cincinnati hasn't been known for scoring a whole lot of points either, just like most of the Midwest. So I would have Pittsburgh definitely relook at Detroit, but I'm not going to say Detroit's a playoff contender yet.
And if I may say something, like he said, just because Detroit beat Pittsburgh in the ADL Mega Scrimmage, just because Detroit beat Cincinnati, like even if Detroit beats them next week, I would not say they're playoff contenders. Like one of my former coaches said, to win a game, you don't have to be better than them overall. You just have to be better than them that particular day. And I think even in Ultimate this season, the saying will come even more to fruition. Anyone can win on any given day, because obviously a lot of surprises this week in the West. The South almost had a couple of upsets, and obviously the Midwest had one big upset no one expected to happen. So definitely I think we're looking into the AUDL's actually looking more like other sports leagues in that, it's becoming more competitive.
All right, so that is the end of this episode. Thank you, James and Andrew. And just a reminder to you all, make sure that you all come back on Thursday for our next preview of Week 2. Good night, everyone.